Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to do a different sort of video. I wanted to talk about books that I'm calling they have consumed me whilst reading them and even had lasting impacts after I have turned that final page. I have 5 books in mind that really just sort of jumped up as my top 5 list. Maybe I am missing one, but these books all have one thing in common, is that I still continually think of them, and whenever I think back to reading them, I have nothing but fond memories of them. Can't say the same about some of the other books I read. Interestingly, all of them are sort of a different genre, so I didn't really plan for that to happen. It just sort of happened. So without further ado, let's get into it. We'll start with the book that I am currently reading, and perhaps before we start, maybe we should define in my own words, what does like consumed me mean? In that sense, I think I've mentioned earlier, couldn't stop thinking about it during reading them, after reading them. They have impacted the ways I sort of went about my day-to-day life, in a sense, just with my thoughts and thinking back to them. In some cases, it has taken me longer to read these books because they are so impactful, and I don't want them to end. And so I find myself purposefully slowing down, rereading passages, taking breaks from these books so that I can live with them a bit longer, maybe digesting them in other forms as well, whether it's audiobooks, immersion reading, or just reading them plain outright. Talk about it with those examples here to come. Now, let's get into it. First book on the list is a book I'm currently reading, contender for best book I've ever read. Like many of these books, I tend to like those sort of all-consuming books. Spoilers here if you've been following the channel for a bit now, but the first one here is Independent People by Halldór Laxness, Icelandic author. This was written in 1950s, I believe. This was the book that won him his Nobel Prize in Literature, and this book, dare I say, is sort of the culmination of everything I have ever read in my life up until this point. I've been calling this sort of my perfect book, and let me explain why. It sort of has a mix of my favorite genres, or I guess my favorite tropes, my favorite elements of some of my favorite books. This is sort of a family drama, but it follows a very unlikable, dry, witty character, which I love. Some of my favorite dry humor, witty books are Us by David Nichols. We follow Douglas Stewart in that book, and he is just some of the most unlikable features about him, but I find him so hilarious, and that is the same in this book. We follow our main character. His name is Bjartur, and some of the lines that he says with just sort of deadpan accuracy. It is so funny. There's so much sort of just chaos and drama that happens, and yet really nothing happens at the same time. We follow Bjartur, this sort of humble man that's bought himself from slavery. He now owns his own land, and he's tending to it quietly in this desolate valley in Iceland, and to him, that is what it is. That is what ultimate freedom is like. He's his own independent person, and the book goes to challenge what it means to be an independent person through the lenses of multiple characters: himself, his children, other people in the town, and it's just sort of very, very good. It just does it well. It's not unlike anything I've ever read. I've been purposefully slowing down, tabbing this book. This is the first book I've ever tabbed, so that in and of itself is definitely in its all-consuming nature. I've been slowing down, pausing, reading, rereading passages. It is so good. I cannot wait to finish this book, but at the same time, I can wait. I just don't really want it to end. Thankfully, I have many, many more of his books to get to. But yeah, Independent People by Halldor Laxness. Second book on this list, and this one sort of surprised me when I was thinking back and sort of gathering my thoughts on some books that I had read previously and that I really couldn't stop thinking about. And that was The Pickwick Papers by Charles Dickens. This is my second Dickens book that I've ever read. I read A Christmas Carol for the first time last year. Obviously, it's amazing. But I wanted to set off my Dickens journey from there, reading in publication order, obviously starting with his novels in The Pickwick Papers. I read this at about the start of the second quarter of this year. I think around April is when I read this. And this is one where I sort of did some immersion reading, listening to the audiobook and reading the physical book at the same time. It's quite a long book as well. This one doesn't really do it justice, but I think it's about 800 pages. Yeah, about 800 pages. This is what the pages look like. So yeah, pretty dense. It's also like written in that style. I don't even know what it is. 1850s English. But yeah, I just felt myself completely engrossed in the story, in the characters. Obviously, not obviously, but this book was serialized back in its day, and you can tell Dickens loves to write and sometimes goes on and on and on for multiple chapters on end with things that seemingly don't, really progress the plot in any meaningful way, but I found that part charming. I just like sort of yucking it up with our characters, Mr. Pickwick and co, Mr. Snodgrass, all the whole gang and what they got up to, the devious things that they were doing. And it was just a fun book, and I did not expect that at all when reading a Charles Dickens novel. It was, thinking back on it, I'm sure I'm missing some parts that I didn't really enjoy, but I don't really care. Thinking back on it now, I had a fabulous time reading this book, listening to this book. It's a very humorous book as well, which I enjoy. So yeah, The Pickwick Papers by Charles Dickens. The next two books are not humorous whatsoever. If you've been a fan of the channel for a while now, I've mentioned this book. I literally don't know how many times. It's got to be at least once every other video. That is Shuggie Bain by Douglas Stewart. This book, insane. This is sort of like my first, holy crap, what did I just read book that I had ever read. Read this, when did I read this? I think I read this at the end of last year, so it was before I even had this channel to really vent about it or really collect my thoughts as to what I had read. This is the first book that has ever made me cry. I guess it's no real surprise that I'm not the most emotional person on BookTube, but this book did it for me. It won the 2020 Booker Prize. It's a family drama. It's heartbreaking. It's, no spoilers, but we follow this sort of young boy named Shuggie Bain, and just his story, and it's a story of growing up and coming to terms with life and the struggles he faces being raised by a single mother, the various men that she, comes to befriend or otherwise, and their effect on him, his relationship with his older brother and sister, and his navigations through early adolescence into sort of the early teenage years, I believe. It is devastating at the end. Definitely get your tissues out for this one, but yeah, this book is awesome. I don't care. I love it. At the same time, I'm scared to reread it because I don't want the magic to wear off. So I think I will just leave it as a once read book. Shuggie Bain by Douglas Stewart. Next book, I've compared this book to Shuggie Bain recently, as I have just read it about 2 months ago. And that is Pat Conroy's The Prince of Tides. This is sort of my perfect summer book, set in the South, in South Carolina during the 60s. Fiction book, obviously, but It's another sort of sprawling family epic drama as we follow the youngest boy in the family growing up. This time he's fully grown up. He's an adult now with his own wife and kids, and he is sort of reliving his childhood in efforts to try and save his twin sister. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, it unearths some less than pleasant experiences that he had as a child, relates him to present day. There's romance, there's just some borderline scary moments in this book. Yeah, this book was, again, all-encompassing audiobook for portion of it, immersion read for portion of it. Yeah, just so good. Like I said, I've read this recently, so I have a couple videos on it already. But yeah, definitely give this one a read. The last book here, I don't have it with me because the series is just vast, and I finished the series before I moved, and so I just left it in storage at my parents' place. But have to throw in Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson, second book in the Stormlight Archive. Maybe I'll throw a picture up of it here. I'm sure you know what Words of Radiance looks like if you've read a book before. But yeah, second book in the Stormlight Archive. I wasn't thrilled with the first Stormlight Archive book. It actually took me 3 times to read it. First time I got about 300 pages in. I actually got about 300 pages in twice, stopped, and then for some reason I picked it up and read it pretty ravenously over the course of about 10 days. And then slowly, I guess that was middle of last year, is when I read the Stormlight Archive. And then from there, I read basically a book a month until Wind and Truth came out, maybe a book every 6 weeks. But yeah, Words of Radiance, definitely the standout book for me, and for good reason. It is, I believe, on Goodreads, it is the highest rated book ever. It has like, I have no idea how many ratings, like over 3 million, I think, ratings. Actually, let me just look it up right here, so I'm not putting words in my own mouth. Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. Stormlight Archive number 2. Okay, yeah, it doesn't have millions of ratings. I don't know what I was talking about. But it does have about 500,000 ratings and a 4.76 star average, which is insane. Won the Goodreads Choice Awards. It takes everything that the first book in the series does and just turns it up a notch. We're fully in the world now. Every character has been established. All the major alliances and relationships are at play, and now Brandon is just having his way with them, exploring them, pulling on strings you didn't think would be pulled or didn't think could be pulled. It is insane in terms of epic fantasy. It is hyped for a reason. I would say the first 3 books of that series are probably some of the best fantasy I've ever read. I wasn't a huge fan of Rhythm of War, but saying that, it was still a phenomenal book. Wind and Truth left a bit to be desired. Oh well. I just still rated the series, I think, like 4 stars overall. Words of Radiance, though, for good reason, is the highest rated book on Goodreads. Give the series a read just for that book. It is insane. I can't even really describe what it's about. You just gotta go read it. It's, yeah, maybe maybe I need to reread that series, but that's a commitment. That's it's a 6,400 page commitment that I simply just don't have time for. Or maybe I do. I guess I'll have time for it if I make it, but I digress. Yeah, those were some of my, oddly enough, the most encompassing books are also some of my favorite books. Funny how that works. But yeah, hope you enjoyed that little list of 5. I'll throw up the 4 here. Additionally, Words of Radiance. Let me know down below, what are some of your favorite books, or maybe just all-encompassing books. Maybe those terms are interchangeable for you. Let me know if you've read any of my picks down below, and if you have, what'd you think of them? And yeah, appreciate you watching up until this point. It's a bit of a rambly one. I like making these videos, ranting about my favorite books. I hope you enjoy watching them as well. I hope you're reading a good book, and I hope you have an even better day. Thanks for hanging out, guys. We'll catch you in the next one.